my emotions swing from understanding, accepting, mad, frustrated, and then, questioning the process and what could have been and should have been handled differently.
Brad Jensen started drinking when he was a teen. Family said he would rather admit that was more of an issue than the developing paranoid schizophrenia he'd later be diagnosed with. He was shot and killed by officers on July 28th when they say he exited a house brandishing knives and walking towards them. He had also been arrested back on July 9th, but his family never quite knew why.
Well, I didn't hear right back from him, and so that, makes you nervous.
Julia Cruzin is a mental health counselor, but was never Brad's. In fact, she never met him. On July 8th, their one communication was an email from Brad, who had found her on a website and sent her this just before midnight. Subject, harassed and mentally abused. Would like to talk to you. Feeling suicidal, but I don't know how to explain or feel comfortable talking to people about personal stuff. I feel the only solution is to take my own life, and people agree. Chris found the email exchange on Brad's computer after the investigation was completed, so he did some digging, and so did we. I found Cruzin and met with her.
You go with your instinct, and if you need to call, say, law enforcement, crisis response, you do. Where it goes from there, oftentimes we don't hear, especially if it's someone that it's not one of our clients. There needed to be a well check or something to make sure this guy was okay.
Did you want contact from an officer?
If they could call me and just let me know.
July 9th, the next day, and Julia can't get in touch with Brad, so she calls 911. On the recording, the dispatcher calls Brad the patient. The call for service report shows Pasco police were dispatched to the patient's residence for a welfare check. The most highlighted note that he's at risk for suicide by cop.
He reached out for help. Do you think he got what he was reaching out for?
No, I don't think he got what he was reaching out for. I don't think the mental health counselor who summoned the police there got what she was looking for.
Chris asked Pasco Police Chief Bob Metzger to look into some of this new information now that the investigation was over. In a memorandum from December, Pasco police say it had been several days since Brad's email for help before they got the 911 call. But according to our documents, it hadn't even been 24 hours. They say officers knew Brad had made comments about suicide by police. They also say they found a warrant for Brad's arrest. $350 he hadn't paid in Benton County. Police say they had no reason to believe Brad was suicidal, so they arrested him.
No, I didn't know that that's what happened. No, I didn't know that they made the decision that he is not suicidal and just arrested him, like you're saying.
But that's what police wrote in the memorandum, that a welfare check was done and the counselor informed. Police said they had no reason to believe he was suicidal at that time, but that weekend, Brad spent behind bars. When the family found a noose here hanging in the garage, the marks on his neck started to make sense. And so did Brad's single Facebook post the night before, saying sorry, feeling helpless. The next proof of Brad's whereabouts are court documents. A judge asked a day later if Brad could pay the fine. He said yes. He was let out.
The mental health system crossed paths with the criminal justice system, and all of a sudden a $350 warrant for failure to pay a fine became more important than this person's mindset.
The Jensens say Brad had what's called a judge-ordered least restrictive alternative. That would force Brad to be confined for 90 days if he showed signs of stress or mental struggle. The family thought the judicial system would see a red flag from his recent arrest and keep him confined, but it didn't. Even over the next few weeks when Chris made a number of calls to counselors for help.
You question what happened and how it could have and should have been handled differently. I mean, the emotion and what one goes through in these types of circumstances is, it's indescribable, I guess.
Almost 20 days later, Brad had another bad night. Chris says Brad's girlfriend and uncle made that call on July 28th to 911 when they noticed he was acting worse than ever. Chris knows legally the fatal shooting that night was he just wishes he had known more about the last time Brad interacted with police.
As a means to move forward with some positive change. And I feel very strongly that that change is necessary.